I was in a committed relationship.
I was going for a walk with a girl I liked.
He was 2 years older than me.
He's an icon on campus.
He was my first love.
I was scared to do this because it's the first time I've ever recorded, said, or done anything about what happened to me.
It was the second time we had hung out.
Freshman year of high school.
I never imagined that this could happen to me, least of all by someone I trusted.
I told myself I was in love with someone so broken without realizing that all he wanted to do was hurt me. And so it happened again and again in the dark.
And even if I kept on saying no, he didn't listen.
When I told my friends what he had done, they laughed.
Everyone knows him as woke and nice and amazing.
He covered my mouth with his hand, pushed away my skirt, and fucked me, wholeheartedly. Like I was simply something to fuck and nothing more. Like my opinion or voice didn't matter or simply wasn't heard.
Every time I told him I wanted to break up, he'd lean me over his bed and fuck me, hoping to make our relationship last, hoping to make me fall back in love with him.
He came inside of me. No condom was used.
After a few minutes, she leaned over and kissed me, forcefully, without my consent. I was stunned and panicky and couldn't do anything. There was no one there to see us. The trauma stuck with me for the rest of the spring term and into the summer. I never reported it because I figured that people would ridicule me, a boy, for having been sexually assaulted by a girl.
He'd done it to another girl in the grade ahead of me, but I didn't know. Sometimes he would guilt me into doing stuff I didn't want to do. I was so infuriated with him and I was too passive and scared of upsetting him, so I would eventually give in. Sometimes he would just explicitly ignore me, saying no to something. Now he's with a girl 3 years younger than him. She knows about both instances, but I guess she didn't care. I'm scared for her and eternally angry at him.
I needed to talk to him about something important, but when I came back, he hugged me and proceeded to put his hands under my dress and lift it off of me. I complied because I love him. This may sound stupid, but it's important that we learn about how to say no, even in a relationship, even when you love a person, and not to be scared of someone's response when we say no.
I didn't stop him only because I didn't want him to leave me.
Sometimes when I told him that I didn't want to have sex, he'd get angry and push me away. He'd physically push me away, throw me off the bed, call me a whore or a slut. Once I left with a blackened eye because of how violently he threw me off his bed.
He didn't hesitate to get aggressive and argumentative when I objected. He didn't hesitate to hold me down, push me back into the bed when I tried to sit up. He didn't hesitate to take my will and shred it to pieces. I didn't know how to classify what happened. I didn't think of a label, only how empty I felt. Like someone pricked a hole in my side and everything in me just slowly leaked out.
I remember the painful silence and tears when waiting for it to be over. It didn't feel real, and nobody ever told me that your own boyfriend could rape you. At the time, I thought that this was normal, but years later, these events play over and over in my head and suffocate me. Years later, I am still afraid of sex and being vulnerable.
I really never talk about it, but it's with me all the time because it makes it really difficult for me to trust anyone.
No one knows because I have always been a quietish person, and this felt like too much and always the wrong time to bring it up. The only reason I'm saying anything now is because I would hate myself for letting another year go by without me saying a word.
And I felt like it was my fault.
I don't even hate you. I just want to forget.
I fear for my own safety going off to college. I want to get an education without having to be afraid.
I am still traumatized.
I still see him from time to time. I act like how we always do, teasing, laughing.
But it's also paper thin now, and I always feel that same rush of fear every time something reminds me of that night.
And the weight of that memory is mine alone to bear.
I will see my assaulter every day for the rest of my time here. I will have classes with him. I will see him in the dining halls and gym. I might even be assigned his partner during projects or labs. I also know that I will never feel safe when he is on the same campus as I am. Every time I see him, I relive that trauma alone.
I'm not over-exaggerating any of these statements. The fact that I have to constantly recheck my accounts, constantly remember what happened just to make sure that I'm not overstepping or making false claims shows how we have failed as a society to listen to victims. How we must always question what they are saying in search of the truth. If I can't sleep with the lights off, if I can't revisit the text messages or photos of us, then it has strongly affected me in ways that transcend over the boundaries of reporting laws.
This is painful for me to recount, and maybe for you to hear, but we can foster a change. If we can show that this behavior is unacceptable, victims will feel empowered to feel like themselves again.
I do not want to be considered a victim. I don't want to walk the halls knowing that people will say that I am now a tortured soul, that I must always live in fear and never be fully whole again. I'm recovering. I'm a living, breathing, beautiful human being. I'm learning to love myself, even if it will take years to wash the pain away.
I am a survivor, but I don't want to be considered a broken person. I am not a broken person.
Don't let your assault define you. Learn to love again, and most importantly, learn you can be loved.
If I'd known that sooner, I would have chosen relationships a lot better and gotten out of the unhealthy ones sooner. You're worth it.
To any survivors, especially those who have not felt comfortable enough to share their story, know you are loved and you are not at fault.